Okay, class, so I welcome you back to your EDEXCEL IGCSE playlist. And for today's class, we would be looking on toward your syllabus section 1.2, and that actually deals with the variety of the living organisms. Now, if we were to see our external environment, so in the external environment, what we observe is that there happens to be existence of some 100 to 1,000 of different living organisms. So you see that we have got a lot of variety of the living organism until or unless there came this scientist Linnaeus. And this Linnaeus scientist, he started to be categorizing the living organisms into some specific groups. And as per this linear system of the classification, he basically devised total of five kingdom systems. And among them, what we have with us, there are the plants, there are the animals, then we have this fungi with us, then there would be these protoctists with us, and then finally we have got these bacteria. So you see that we have got this variety of the living organisms, and we have to be very much clear about that what would be the characteristics feature of these organisms that we have placed in their specific kingdoms. But before we proceed with the detail of the animal cell for today's class, what you have to keep it in your mind is that the plants, animal, fungus, and the protoctist, they would have the cells in them, and these cells, they would be the eukaryotic cells. And for the bacteria that we have got with us, in this, the cells that we will have in them, they would be the prokaryotic cells, and there exist multiple differences between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic cells. But as of now, you have to keep one simple point in your mind that for all those living organisms, if we have their cell, and in the cell, if there would be the nucleus, the presence of the nucleus, and if there would be the availability of the genetic material, which is the DNA with us, and if this is lying within the chromosomes that we have got over here, so such organisms, they would be the eukaryotic organisms with us. And for now, we would look on toward in the variety of the living organism, that is the animals with us. Now, when we try to be looking into the animals, so the cells in them would be the animal cell, and this animal cell has got multiple of the components in it. We would have the nucleus, then there would be the cell membrane with us, then we will have the cytoplasm in them, and collectively these three components, they would make the living matter of the cells in them, and this is what we call this as the protoplasm. Then we will have the mitochondria, and within the cytoplasm of the animal cell, we would come across some network of the membrane, and they would be the rough endoplasmic reticulums. And on rough endoplasmic reticulums, we will have some small spherical masses, and they are the ribosomes. Then we will have the centrioles in them, and for the animal cell, there would also be the existence of some small temporarily existing vacuoles in them. So if I were to quickly take you toward the diagram of a typical animal cell, so for this cell, if you see on the outside, we have got the cell membrane in them. And then here we have got this nucleus in them. In close association with the nucleus, here we have this extended network of the membrane, which is rough endoplasmic reticulum. And on these rough endoplasmic reticulums, these small spherical masses that are indicated by the yellowish coloring, so they are the ribosomes. And then we have got the sausage-shaped organelles, they are the mitochondria with us. And if you were to see clearly, so in between the nucleus and the cell membrane that we have with us, there is this fluid-filled space with us, and this is entitled as the cytoplasm. Now we must consider that how these components that we have in the animal cell, they would contribute to the function. So if I were to quickly take you toward the first component that I have highlighted for you above, so here what we have got with us is this nucleus. And the nucleus is just like as we have the mothers in our home or the father in our home who controls activities of the home. So likewise, what the speciality of the nucleus is that it has got the genetic material in it, which is the DNA, and that DNA has got some instructions that would control the activities of the cells by making proteins from the ribosome. So you see that the nucleus does not control the activities of the cells directly, but rather than it sends the instructions to the ribosome. The ribosome will make the protein, and indirectly that would control the activities of the cells. And if we were to talk about the cytoplasm, so this is a kind of a gel-like substance, and it is composed of water and dissolved solutes. And for sure, since within the cytoplasm, as we have seen above, we have got multiple of the cellular structures, so they need the support. So that support would again be provided by the cytoplasm. And for sure, we can never forget that the cytoplasm is the site of many chemical reactions. Like we will see in a while that the mitochondria they bring about the aerobic respiration by which we release energy, but in some cases when there is absence of oxygen, so we are required to be releasing the energy from the anaerobic respiration, and this anaerobic respiration phenomenon this would be accomplished or it would take place within the cytoplasm. Now, if I were to move further toward the cell surface membrane, so as for our homes, we have got the gate that would control the entry and exit of some people getting into and out of our home. So likewise, for the cells, if the substances they have to enter and leave the cell, so their entry and the exit would be controlled by the cell membrane. And since some of the substances are allowed to enter and some are allowed to exit, so this is also referred to as selectively permeable or partially permeable membrane. And at the same time, the cell membrane, this would hold the cellular contents on the inside of the cell, but at the same time, this would allow our cells to interact with their external environment. And the environment of the cells is what we call this as the tissue fluid. So that interaction is provided by the cell membrane. Now, if I were to move further, so when we talk about the ribosomes, so as we have seen above that they can either be found in the cytoplasm, they can be lying freely within the cytoplasm, or they can attach themselves to the membrane of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And for the role of the ribosomes, what you have to be keeping in your mind is that this is a site of the protein synthesis. Like whenever the cell plans to be making a protein, so the genetic information would come from the DNA that is lying in the nucleus, and then ultimately, when the instructions would be carried to the ribosome, so the ribosomes would read those instructions, and as per those instructions, it would assemble the amino acids together, and finally, we would make the protein like the enzymes, and in some cases, the hormones. And we can never forget about these mitochondria that we have with us, and they are responsible for one of the fundamental characteristic of the living organism, and that was respiration. And by the respiration, what we mean is that we would be releasing the energy by this process. What actually happening is that within the mitochondria, there would be the coming up of the glucose molecule, and this glucose molecule, when it would combine with six molecules of oxygen gas. So, as a result of that, we would make six molecules of carbon dioxide gas. We would make six molecules of the water, and the energy we would release it in the form of a molecule, and that molecule is ATP, and that stands for adenosine triphosphate. So for all the cells that we have got in our body, which basically are carrying out a very high rate of the metabolism, or they carry out a great variety of the chemical reactions. So in them, there would be a very high number of the mitochondria in them so that they could be in the position to be releasing a lot of energy. So I hope you would be clear in the section of the variety of the living organism, and for today, I have taught you about the animal cell. So see you in the next class for the plant cell.